Hello and welcome to today's session. I hope you're all doing amazingly well from whichever part of the world you are watching. Today, I would like to talk about how more consultants don't fix confusion, they actually magnify it. So, if you are a landowner who has already spent thousands on multiple experts, getting beautiful renderings, on feasibility studies, but you feel that your project has not yet moved forward. In other words, you are not even breaking ground at this stage, then this session is for you specifically. Because here's what I see very often: your experts give you more opinion, and that opinion cannot be implemented in a coherent way until you have clarity. Clarity of what exactly you are building and how much you are prepared to pay for it or get funding for it, and also who you need to be, clarity on your identity, the person who will be leading this kind of project at this scale. So today what we'll do is explore how you need that clear vision in order to move forward. We will also talk about the internal journey every landowner goes through, no matter what, at least those who actually build their wellness retreat. And lastly, I will also talk about when things start shifting, when you reach what I call that turning point, the North Star moment, and how to know when you have reached that North Star moment, that turning point of yours. So, starting off with clarity. Now, I know I have spoken in my previous sessions and also a lot of the content I'm sharing on LinkedIn, particularly, moving forward and preparing for From Land to Legacy, the Spotlight event, has been centered around clarity. And this is something I have noticed and observed the last 18 years having my business and having worked with several boutique hotel owners long before we have had this trend of boutique hotel owners coming into the industry right now on a global level. But what I have seen is that you want to do things right. You want to move things forward. And you also are acutely aware that you might not even have the knowledge at present because this is something new to you. You're just very clear that you have a lovely piece of land and that what you want to do now in this time of your life has to have meaning and has to give back to your land, to your people. It has to be meaningful. That said, you look to other experts to help you clarify your vision, for them to tell you what you need to build. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. The clarity must come from you as the landowner. And it is not something that happens overnight. It is something that takes in itself, it's a process to get to that point where you gain that clarity. And you just have to go through the motions in order to get that clarity. But it's important to also specify, and I've said this before, the two types of clarity. One, clarity on what exactly you are building. And that normally starts with being clear what you don't want, because that's equally valid. Knowing what you definitely do not want to build is also a very good starting point. And from there, getting clear, what exactly do you want to build? How do you want this project to fit into your lifestyle? And what amount of money are you willing to spend on it or get investment backup for it? That is not something your feasibility consultant or your architect will let you know. These are figures. This is part of the groundwork that you would need to do before you even hire any consultants or before you spend any money on renderings or getting the concept design or the design deck. And that clarity is obvious. We all know that we need some form of clarity. I'm not giving you any additional information that you don't know. That said, you also need a second type of clarity, and that's the clarity of your identity as the person who will be leading this project. Because the difference between those projects that actually get funded, get built, and are running successfully 10, 15, 20 years later is that these people have had clarity on what exactly they're building, what amount of risk they are willing to take that fits with their reality and their comfort zone, and the person they need to become in order to lead this project. Because when you're clear about what you are building, you are more likely to get the investment you need, and you're also more likely to get the project off the ground in the initial stages. But equally important is the clarity in your identity, because if you don't get experts, if experts or feasibility studies or investors or your teams do not look at you as the person who can actually lead this project, that can take them past the finish line, you're not going to get their backing. And without that backing, your project is going nowhere. You could get the initial investment, but it will not be built and will definitely not run in a successful manner. So that clarity has to come from you. And that does not happen overnight. In From Land to Legacy, I'll be sharing the story of how one of my clients has gained his clarity in the last 15 to 18 months. And it is not that he was not clear at the beginning. He just learned how to translate the idea, that deep purpose he had in his mind. And he has learned how to articulate it in a way that people understand. And here's what generally happens. When you're creating something purpose-driven, something the market has never seen, because you as the owner have identified that need, and you have found that the market has not given you that, what you're looking for, hence you've gone and created. That's how most entrepreneurs start. Your skill will be in how you can meet each different consultant, each different stakeholder, each different collaborator, meet them where they are in terms of understanding what you're trying to achieve and bringing them along with you. So it's your job also as an owner to educate your collaborators in your vision and being deeply aware that they might not get it. And it is your job to help them get it if they're the right fit. It's going to be very, very difficult to find someone who understands it from the get-go. And it is okay if they don't understand what you are trying to achieve. The important thing is you extract from them what you need to get into the next step. Which then leads us to this journey that I see most boutique hotel owners go through. And it's not something they can avoid. When you're trying to do something that is completely out of the box, that you in your heart know is possible and you will make it happen. But as you start going out to the market with your concept, trying to find different experts, trying to get the investment you need, you suddenly find that many people aren't on the same page, or they want you to change parts of your concept so it fits with what they're comfortable with or what they know. And when that disconnect starts happening, once you start seeing people who are not equally passionate about your vision or even believe in your vision as much as you do, that is when you start entering the valley of despair. Because you quickly realize that there are not many people who will share the same passion as you do to get your project off the ground. And you will quickly realize how much educating you're required to do to get people to follow you and to get your project off the ground. And once you get onto that valley of despair, once you're descending that valley of despair, it gets quite daunting. And here's what I've also seen. The valley of despair is only the start. That descent into just finding challenge after challenge. You will eventually get to what I call that river of misery, where you are at your lowest point thinking, sweet heavens, what did I get myself into? I'm so deep in this. I have spent so much money, so much time, so much energy into this. I possibly can't go backwards, but I definitely don't see the way forward. And here is when, during my asset build and mentorship programs, this is where I'm actually coaching and we're walking side by side with my clients to show them that they need, unfortunately, to swim through this river of misery because they will eventually get out of it. They're not stuck in it. And if they've been called to do this particular project, then they definitely have the skill set, they definitely have the capability and the capacity to get to the other end. Now, they might not have it today, but part of being in that river of misery is to develop those skills, the capacity, the capability, the team to get you to the other end of that river of misery and finally get into Mount Transformation. But here's what I notice happens when many landowners enter this valley of despair and then get into that river of misery. They think that their project will never work, that they're ahead of the market, that there is no point continuing because the exhaustion is real. The mental fatigue is real. The draining of resources is real. But what I want to let you know that if you find yourself in that stage, know that this is a very normal part of the process. You chose to do something that no one else has even tried to do before, at least not in the way you want to do it. So, of course, it's going to be difficult. And of course, there's no playbook out there. And of course, there are no other experts out there that can tell you what exactly or how that path will look like. You are going to have to do that work, to find the right people, to extract the information you need, to build your skill set, to build your capability, to build your capacity, to get the right team behind you, to walk ahead with you, even when that path ahead is uncertain. You just don't know which direction to go, but you do know that you just have to move forward. So if you find yourself in that valley of despair, that you're suddenly seeing that your concept, what you're offering, that deep passion you have for what you want, other people aren't seeing it, or it's proving to be a lot more difficult to get it off the ground. And then when you are getting off the ground, you encounter a new series of challenges. And that's when you're in that river of misery. Descending down the valley of despair and swimming in the river of misery are part of the process. It's only normal and nothing is going wrong there. And then lastly, what I do want to talk about is that turning point, that moment when suddenly it doesn't feel uphill. You're not swimming in your river of misery with ankle weights on, for example. There will come that point where suddenly things start to fall into place. You are articulating your vision clearly. You have seen enough challenges or enough pushback to know how to get people to believe in your project. You're also clear on what kind of person you want to work with. And you're even more clear who you want to actually work alongside and who you want to serve. And then things start moving forward. You're suddenly opening ground. You're getting the investors you need, and you're eventually opening your resort. And you are doing, and you're making the impact you want, and you are getting the returns you want. But that North Star moment only happens once you've gone past that valley of despair, you swam past the river of misery, and you get to that point where things are easier, things are progressing. Maybe not when you wanted them to progress, or even how you wanted them, or whatever idea you would have had in your mind. So, today was to talk about how more consultants don't solve or fix the confusion you're going through. They only amplify it. Now, I'm in no shape, I'm in no way not, I'm not saying that you do not need consultants. You do not need expert help. You do not need the right team. You absolutely do. But what you can't do is expect them to give you the clarity of what you want. You are the leader of this project. You need to be clear. What exactly are you building? How much risk are you willing to take? And are you willing to become that person who's going to lead a project, a unique project like the one you are creating? Who do you need to become in order to get the backing of your team, the right team members, to get you to the destination where you want to get to? So, on that thought provoking note, the message is clarity. Clarity around what you want to build in your identity. Then knowing that the descent down the valley of despair and swimming past that river of misery are only part of the process. And if you're not going through that, you're definitely in your comfort zone. And lastly, that North Star moment, that turning point eventually comes. And you will know it because things are progressing forward. You wake up one day thinking, wow, this is actually happening. Maybe it hasn't happened how I thought it would happen, but it is happening. And I see this time and again. There are only three things that separate those landowners who get their project off the ground and open it from those who don't. That clarity, then knowing and accepting that internal journey every landowner goes through, and then knowing that North Star moment does come, and it does always come. And on that note, my dear friends, I wish you all a beautiful day ahead. Take care now.